Our final speaker before we march is going to be coming up. Our speaker is Jim Casey from the Fire Brigade Employees Union in New South Wales. And we always make a point of inviting someone from the trade union movement to speak at these rallies because we know that unions play a crucial role in standing up against imperialism and Israeli aggression. And before I get Jim to speak, I just want to make a point that around Australia, many unions have been passing motions denouncing Israel's crimes in Gaza. The Australian Education Union Victorian branch, the Victorian Trades Hall Council, the peak body for unions in Victoria, the National Tertiary Education Union Sydney University branch has passed a motion. The Construction, Forestry, Mining and Energy Union of Victoria, the Electrical Trades Union of Victoria have passed motions denouncing Israel's crimes. And this is a good step forward because to actually build more support for this movement, we need the trade unions to take up this issue. This is not just a humanitarian issue, it's a union issue, it's an issue for all workers. So please make Jim Casey welcome.
I read it's a firefighter, and I'm touched greatly by what's happening in Gaza in both kind of expressions of myself. Today we're all united by the horror we've witnessed and the anger we feel at the collective punishment which is being meted out to the people of Gaza by the Israeli Defence Force. We've heard weasel words about how it's with great regret this occurs, that Israel's military is the most humane military in the world, that at the end of the day, if the Palestinians just shut up, everything would be okay. We've seen their crocodile tears, but the numbers speak for themselves. 1,700 dead, over 80% of them women and children. Infrastructure destroyed. Because I hate to break it to you, but a hospital without electricity is not a hospital, it's a morgue. The more grotesque examples of what's happened. The Marabit, if I pronounce this correctly, Palestinian Centre. If anyone can explain to me what a respite home for children with severe disabilities, why that needs to be bombed. If anyone can explain that to me, step up to the stage. We're united in horror at this. And that's not really what I came here to speak about today, actually, because I'm preaching to the choir. Instead, what I wanted to speak to you about was the rescuers. The men and the women, the firefighters, the paramedics, who are right now in Gaza doing their level best to save them. There's a bit of a firefighter-related jargon. We call a working job the fire ground. So if that structure was on fire, that's the fire ground. Today, Gaza is the worst fire ground in the world. It's a war zone, and like any war zone, people who go to save others, people who try to deal with fires, people who try to deal with medical problems, end up becoming targets. Really, firefighters and ambulance staff in various forms have been military targets since war first started targeting civilian populations, which really was when war first started. But what does this mean concretely right now in Gaza? Well, I'll tell you, it means that on Friday there was a rocket fire on an ambulance. It killed 3 paramedics. There were 4 injured people in the ambulance. They're now dead. It means Omar Mansour, a paramedic who can say at the end of a 24-hour shift, the worst thing is the smell of the blood, the burned blood, it's everywhere, I can't get it out of my nose. It means fire crews rolling to structures alive with hopelessly antiquated equipment because Operation Cast Leg destroyed 40% of the firefighting fleet. So what they've done, they've converted tip trucks. They've welded water tanks onto the top. The centre of gravity is very high, so it makes it difficult. But in some ways, the biggest problem they've now got is they have no fuel. These men and women are working in extraordinarily difficult circumstances. The thing which I think is really striking about that is when you really start to dig down, when I think about this as a firefighter, it really brings it home to me that these people are just like us. So much of the coverage of this dispute likes to make the Palestinians some kind of other. You know, they're strange, they're fanatics, they're subhuman, they're prepared to sacrifice their children. These are all lies, and when you start to reflect about the firefighters, the ambulance workers, the teachers, the nurses, people who do jobs like ours in that society, you realise that they are exactly the same as us. And they don't deserve this. Look, I'm going to wrap up, but I want to say two things before I actually read you the statement that my union took last week. The first is this. The first is that this is tremendously important that we're occupying this space and we're talking about this, and we need more of it. The speaker earlier, I thought he nailed it. The only way we can counter the incredibly well-resourced information machine which is trying to spin this conflict is by having the conversations ourselves. So take this back to your workplace, take this back to your community. When you're dropping your kids off at school, have a chat with the other parents. People need to understand that this is a very straightforward question. There is a gross human rights crisis occurring in Gaza because the Israeli Defence Force are killing people. And secondly, the BDS campaign. We need to look at something else and more than just simply rallies and talking, and I think that campaign has got real potential. We know it's got potential because it really upsets them. I'm going to close with this. I'm going to read you this statement that my union adopted last week. The Fire Brigade Employees Union supports the Palestinian General Federation of Trade Unions general strike in the West Bank in protest at the Israeli government's actions and condemns attacks upon Palestinian workers and trade unionists. The union applauds the tremendous work done by firefighters and emergency services workers assisting the victims of recent attacks whilst being fired upon themselves. We send our support and solidarity to all those affected by the conflict, including the families of the victims. The FBU deplores the horrific attacks on Gaza and calls for an immediate negotiated ceasefire. Thank you, comrades. Long live the firefighters of Gaza and free Palestine.